Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Thursday. It's March 2nd. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And you can see, looking at the daily chart, we traded on down into the lower oversold category here and reversed and traded out of there. We closed off the highs. Still a pretty bullish reversal type bar here, so we could see a correction here. At some point, I would think we at least come back to the midline if we don't go any higher. Even if we're going to continue lower, we still are kind of chopping sideways here. But as of now, it just looks like more of the same. Other than the fact that this is a pretty nice reversal bar, and we did have a pretty good trend up today. Um, it looked like we might have a range day, but the market just kept going higher. So the buying came in today. It looks like a possible reversal day, so we might get a couple of days of rallying here. We could actually just continue to go sideways or even turn back down, but this looks a little like a reversal day here. So we'll see what we get tomorrow. See if we get any follow through buying and go higher or not. Um, Even though we broke higher above yesterday's high, we still closed below that level. So and there is a little bit of stem there. So it's not, it's still a bullish bar though, still a bullish reversal type bar. You can't deny that. And I think it looks like that on the intraday chart. So let's flip over to the 2000 tick chart and we'll go through the trades and take a look at that chart and we'll wrap this week up. Okay, here's our 2000 tick chart and you can see it ended, we took off right here around lunchtime with a really strong, strong momentum to the upside. And it prior to that we had this kind of choppy, almost sideways, see we're above and below the EMA. Even though we're going up, you can treat this like a range. And so you might, till we broke out here and continued higher, you had to really assume maybe we were in a range. And then when we did go higher, you look for that measured move and notice that we just went right on through that and traded much, much higher. So by this time, we're definitely in an uptrend. And you can clearly see the two-tiered channel here. Early on, we couldn't even get to the midline on it, but once we broke out of there, we got some momentum buying. It came in right around lunchtime, 1 o'clock, and some more that came in around 2 o'clock or so right there. And there's a lot of buying on each of those segments up. Notice the big push up here, and then we corrected, and another big one here. There was somewhat of one here. Then we got another big one that came in right here all the way up. So yeah, there was a couple different ways to look at this. It's clearly a two-tiered channel working higher here. However, it didn't really push higher with a lot of momentum until right here. This is a really weak uptrend that you could trade both ways if you got the right setup. So keep that in mind. But let's zoom in. Oops, didn't mean to do that. And we'll go through the trades. And we'll wrap this day and this week up. Let's zoom on in here. Okay, 7 o'clock kind of comes in this little correction right here. Notice that you had this move up, break, move to a new high, and then there's actually somewhat of a failure right here that you might consider. I didn't like it because of that inside bar, but that's not such a big deal on a failure because you probably still, as strong as that move is, you probably still trapped a lot of longs right there. And when it breaks lower, you probably wouldn't have got anything much more than a scalp out of this because it does try to come back again and then it runs on down for another leg down. But there's a little hidden second entry in there as well, so you could even look at that as a hidden second entry short. There's actually a second entry short on this chart when it breaks below those little two-bar matching low right there as well, but I definitely don't like that setup. So it's starting to look very congested right there. And then we're just chopping along here. At this point, you can see you still kind of had a downward bias. And so when you got a second entry short right here, I didn't draw it, but there's There's a little trend channel, and you might have even drawn it from down here. It's not much different. You still kind of come out with the same thing. And you get the break, two legs up. You don't really make a new high. You just kind of make a double top there. But notice the new swing low. It's lower than that one. So you get a first entry and then a second entry. A little bit of room back to the EMA. I like that trade. We drop on down here. We just kind of keep working sideways. And then you get another second entry short right here. So really you got a break and two legs up with both legs having two swings in them. And then a big bearish bar. I'm not as crazy about this one because the fact that we're still pushing higher here, and we had this breakout that made a new high. You might wait on a lower high here. You don't get that opportunity. It comes down here and you can't go short right there. Then you get this little failed break lower. If you had a little better signal bar there, maybe you go long. Even this one's tempting, but the last few times we went higher, you couldn't get above that midline really. So that makes me wary of going long right there. And then you get another second entry right here after the failed breakout to the downside. And each time we've turned down up there, we've come back. So I think that one's worth taking if you have room, and you do. And then we just kind of continue to chop around, and there's no real setups here. Nothing to go long on the breakout pullback. That's a breakout pullback long, but there's nothing there that I think we would want to take. Of course, you get your close here to move down and then run to a new high, and then you're just chopping. You're testing this upper overnight high, but and that was the other thing I meant to show you. When we opened up here at 8:30, we opened right here. Well, the low from yesterday was right here, so draw that line on there. So when we opened up at 8:30, we had to trade back up to here to fill that gap. And so this move up could have just been to try to fill the gap. And sometimes it'll go all the way up and and test the close like it did right here. But today it just kept going. So I meant to talk about that earlier and just point that out to you. But I don't see anything. You can't go long into this resistance here, this overnight high, and there's no real shorts that set up there. And then we break out, and then the breakout, of course, fails, and you get this higher low right here. I like going long. Just try to ride it back up and test the highs again, and that's what it does before it even goes higher. There's another second entry here. Notice the new high, first entry, second entry. But again, you just can't go long into that resistance. Look how many times we've tried and can't get through there, and then this signal bar is no good anyway. And when we do break out, it fails instantly. Unfortunately, you don't get a setup to ride it back down, and then it tries to go higher yet again. This market's wanting to go higher, but it's really, really struggling. And so we get another breakout, and after 3 attempts to go higher, each one makes a little lower high in that big bearish bar right there. I like going short. You're hoping that this breakout's going to fail and we're going to run all the way down to the other side. That doesn't quite happen, but you still get a pretty good move there, and you may get a runner on this one. Hopefully you probably would, but you can see, I mean, if you just ride it down to the last lows, there's 8 points for you right there on a runner. So, and then of course we bounce down here and you get a triple test with a nice reversal type bar. It's an engulfing bar. I wouldn't trade the engulfing bar on that doji right there. I'd wait and go long above that if it closes bullish, which it does, and that's another nice move up. Maybe you get another runner there, and then it turns right back down again. And test this all over again. Unfortunately, it doesn't get a good signal bar down here to ride it up the next time. It comes back, and you do get a second entry long right here. Notice that new high, first entry, second entry. But look how congested that is. And that's right back, right where that previous support resistance was. And it's really closing on both sides. So again, I think you need more of a better test than that shows it holds before you go long. And notice how it comes back once, twice, 3 times. And so now you got a good signal bar after at least 3 tests. So now is where you want to try to get long. And you're just really looking to ride it back to here where the resistance is. But in this case, it just keeps going. So if you get a runner there, this is where you might try to get a runner. That's pretty tight. You there's sometimes it's just not worth your effort to try for runners. And when you're in these ranges like this, unless it's a failed breakout of the highs or the lows, generally it's not worth trying to get a runner. So I don't know if you try for one there. Doesn't mean you can't try for one because you never know. But a lot of times you're better off to stick to the trades where you're more likely to get a runner, which is on trends and failed breakouts, trading back against the back into the range. So I like that long. Whether or not you're going to try to get a runner there, that's another question. And then of course you run up here, you make a new high, and you come back first entry, second entry. So again, you got an engulfing bar. I'd wait to go long on this bar. It is a second entry. There are two legs down. You do have a break and a new low, but this is where it gets hard. Sometimes timing these bottoms, you might be a little bit early, and and then it stops you out, but then goes where you expect it to go. So that's where I like to wait on a high or low. You might take this one. Don't get me wrong. It's a second entry long. You would expect a retest of the high. We were expecting prices to test this breakout or measured move, the width of the original range, which is here. So there's reasons to think about going long, but it's kind of congested. It's below the EMA, and there's just some strikes against it, even though it's a really nice signal bar. So this is where see if it'll push back and give you a high or low that's reasonable, which that is, nice signal bar, or maybe even a reversal, a failure on a failed second entry short that's like a continuation pattern. Most of you wouldn't want to trade that, so if you didn't take this high or low, then you probably want to just skip out. You didn't get the reversal anyway, or the failure anyway. It's not really a reversal, it'd be a continuation pattern. So because we're in an uptrend, we're trending higher, we're making higher highs and higher lows here. So we get another pull back to the trend line, but we're way away from the EMA here, so nothing I really like. And then notice what happens. You come back again here, and you've got your break and a new low. It's like a 5-tick bar. Way away from the EMA. You're probably going to snap back. This is a little bit, you're being a little aggressive here. So for that reason is why I marked it green. But the fact that it's a pretty nice bar after a break and a move down, and notice where you're bouncing right off that. We already bounced there once, and you're kind of bouncing there again. And it's only 5 ticks, so it's very low risk. So maybe you take that trade just hoping to get a scalp, and maybe it takes off again. You don't really get another chance to enter it. We do make a new high here after we got the break and a new high, and then we're trending down and you get a break, and you tried to go lower here, but I like this just because it's a first entry, second entry, and there is some support right across there. We bounced several times, so maybe you take that trade. I like it. You get another pull back to it again here. It's not a good enough signal bar. Same thing here, not a good enough signal bar. And this is actually a second entry too. Notice the breakout. And you might have even considered trading that failure, but we're in an uptrend here, and you don't really know where the trend line is yet. I mean, you've drawn it. You keep drawing it off the swings, and that's the final lowest swing, the first 2 swings. So it does end up, I mean, I guess it's there. We're just guessing at it, but it looks pretty accurate as far as the midline in here. So maybe that's it, but that's hard to judge at this point. So you really can't go. I don't think you want to go short in here. But it would have been a nice trade. But again, I would want a lower high or something there. I mean, it's a possibility. You might mark it green. It's being a little aggressive. You could say, hey, it looks a lot, but we're making a higher high here than here, and you made a higher high here. It's not by much, so maybe you say, hey, we tested that 3 times, triple test across there. But there's better trades, and it's getting late in the day too. So, of course, we bounced right off the trend line here. Again, we probably wouldn't have had this trend line. You was just drawing it at this point. But we bounce there. We bounce off that support again. This is really a little bit lower there, like so. You can clearly see that's where the most touches are, especially with the closes too. We run up, pull back, we make a higher low but no signal bar, and that takes us on into 230. There is a little bit of a higher low here, but it didn't get back to the EMA, and there's not much room to that high. And you see how it tries to find some resistance there, but it ends up going higher. And we did sell off the highs into the close there, and so that's why we got the little bit of stem on the daily chart on that large bar. So uh, yeah, again, you can trade most of this both ways if you get a good setup, because we're continually above and below the EMA until right in here. And then we got pretty much consistently, we're still trading below it a few times, but consistently it's pointed up and most of the price action's above it. This is clearly a real strong uptrend. So trade it as such. Don't be trying to take any shorts unless you get something just really a really good setup. And that's another reason I really don't like that one. Really, you're just playing the little range right there, and those failed breakouts usually always at least come back and test the breakout area. So that's why I kind of like that one. But for the most part, be careful of shorts up here. Again, we are starting to get above and below the EMA again, and it's not near as steep as what it started out being, but we're still in that uptrend at this point. So there it is. Not much else you can say about the day. It's, for the most part, it's an update. It started out weekly up, and then it got pretty strong here, and then sold off a little bit into the close. So I hope you had a good trading day. I hope you've had a good week. We'll be back Monday. No chart lessons on Fridays. I say that a lot lately, but just there's always new people coming in, and then people ask me what happened to the Friday chart lesson. So I just like to remind people. But we'll be back Monday. So I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.